But as I become less afraid of myself, including my emotional self, I become safer to myself and to others. Hi everybody, Steve Halley here with the Family Peace Initiative, and welcome to the June edition of the Facilitator's Tool Chest blog. Today I wanted to talk with you just a little bit about restricted emotional expression, and probably break the news to you that you probably are suffering from restricted emotional expression and may or may not even know it, as most people are. But I want you to know that you come by this honestly, and so do the people in your groups. Right? The people in your programs, when they come to see you, you know that they are suffering from restricted emotional expression based on two significant factors. There's one, the socialization of human beings in this day and age. There is a lot of expectations of what kind of emotions are acceptable, what kind of emotions are not accepted, when you can express certain feelings and when not to express other feelings. Many of us learn this stuff, by the time we're in kindergarten, that there's some feelings that are just not a good idea to show to our peers, at risk of being teased, humiliated, criticized. Crying on the playground is never a good idea. And so our culture, our society kind of trains us to be restricted in our emotional expression. Trauma is another contributor to restricted emotional expression. People survive traumatic childhoods, many traumatic experiences, often by turning off their feelings. And you don't have to look any further than the survivors of the Holocaust to be able to realize that people would survive the horrible cruelty that they were experiencing by literally turning their feelings off. And as one survivor said in a TV interview, she spent the rest of her life trying to turn them back on again. And so we have all kinds of influences that are inviting us to be restricted in our emotional expression. And I'm happy to tell you I've been working on trying to become better at emotional expression for a little over 30 years now. And it wasn't long ago when Dorothy and I were at a movie. And we don't go to movies too often anymore. We kind of watch more Netflix and other streaming services. But we decided to take a night out and go to the movie and eat a big bucket of popcorn and watch the show. Well, it was a good movie. And at the end, the music starts playing and there's this grand kind of finale that's coming on as the movie comes to the end, and the good guy has won the battle and is riding off into the sunset. And I got emotional and I started having some tears, and I'm just sitting there enjoying the ending of this wonderful presentation, and they turned the lights on. And when they did, my body had a reaction. I just, wiped the tears from my eyes and tried to act like I wasn't emotional, wasn't crying. And I had that response almost before I even thought it through, that I didn't want people to see me teary. I didn't want people to judge me as being weak and soft and vulnerable, and it was a spontaneous way. And it demonstrated to me, after all these years of trying to become more aware of my emotional self and trying to be able to express it in the right moments, that I still had more work to do. First of all, I think it's amazing that a human being has the capacity to turn their feelings off. That's remarkable, right? And surely if we can turn them off, we can learn to turn them back on again. But it seems that that's a more difficult process. Once we learn to be restricted in our emotional expression, it's hard to unlearn that. So our guys, our participants in our groups, when they come to class, as a facilitator, I already know before I shake their hand that they are suffering from emotional restricted expression. And that's going to be part of the program intervention with them, is to help them become more familiar, less afraid of themselves, and able to express more authentically what are the feelings going on in their bodies. And you can see it when they come in, right? Because in our groups, we check in with your name and how you're feeling, and then some other component, like, one way you've been abusive. But when it gets to the feeling, people say, "Hi, my name's Bob, and I feel good." And we'll say, "Great. So if you put good in terms of mad, sad, glad, or afraid," which we like to use kind of the primary colors of our feelings, are mad, sad, glad, and afraid. Just trying to simplify things for people who are not educated in their own emotional selves. How would you put good? Is it, "Well, I'm fine." Well, great. Well, so Bob, if you're good and fine, if you notice what's happening in your body, how are you feeling? Mad, sad, glad, or afraid? I'm all right. It's really like they can't even say the words, but they're oblivious to what they're feeling. We know that their socialization has impacted our group participants, and we know that trauma has impacted our group participants. And one of the impacts of both of those is restricted emotional expression. And so throughout our classes, we are just working on mad, sad, glad, and afraid. And if you're mad, what else are you feeling? Because feelings come in groups. Rarely are we just angry. We are most often angry with a little bit of sad and afraid, or we're afraid with a little bit of sad and angry. And, it just comes in groups. And it informs the conversation as people develop the skills to break down their physical response into mad, sad, glad, and afraid. What are you mostly mad about? What are you mostly sad about? What are you mostly afraid about? And what is that feeling mostly about? Allowing people to break in and walk into that feeling just a little bit more. Now, I want you to know that as a facilitator, you're not a lot different than the group participants in this regard. You are very likely emotionally restricted in your expression, and it's not weird, right? And so learning yourself to recognize that feelings come in groups, and that whenever you notice yourself feeling something, there's usually other feelings kind of lurking around in there that you might be able to put your finger on and name and express. And as we learn that we don't have to hide, deny, repress, as we become safer with our own self, our own humanity, that I know that feelings come along with the human deal, right? That I can be thoughtful and I can be emotional, and it all comes together. And being emotionally expressive means the ability to recognize what's happening inside of me and being able to express it so that other people in relationship can understand what's my experience at the moment. And so I would encourage you to listen to restricted emotional expression, because people who are really emotionally intelligent can tell you what they're feeling and can tell you what it's mostly about. People who are really restricted in their expression may even have a hard time saying the words. And so pay attention to yourself. When do you find yourself feeling sad but saying you're fine, or feeling angry and saying that you're all right? And whatever it is, the more you're working towards avoiding your emotional self, the more you're restricted in your expression, right? And so I want you to be able to recognize this in yourself, but also listen to the cues inside of the group room. You can ask people, how are you feeling right now? Mad, sad, glad, or afraid? And listen to how difficult it is for them to tell you what the feeling is. So good luck with this. I want you to know that restricted emotional expression is intimately connected to violence and aggression and controlling behavior. If I'm afraid of what people might do, then I might work to control them in a variety of ways, through coercive control or through violence and aggression. But as I become less afraid of myself, including my emotional self, I become safer to myself and to others. Play with that, think about that, and I will put another one of these vlogs out in July, and I hope you guys have a great beginning of your summer. And thanks again for all that you do to end cruelty in families in the world. Bye now.